I never thought the person I trusted most at work could ruin me. Until the day my boss cut my bonus and blamed me for a mistake I didn't make. It was supposed to be a routine review, nothing more. But when he slammed the folder in front of me, my chest sank. "You messed this up," he said, his voice calm but sharp like a knife disguised as a handshake. "Your negligence cost the company thousands. Don't expect a bonus this year." I blinked, trying to process his words. "Sir," I double-checked everything myself. "The numbers are correct," I said, my voice steady, though anger simmered beneath. He leaned back, smirking. "The numbers don't lie, neither do your mistakes. You're convenient, that's all." I left his office burning with humiliation. 5 years of hard work, late nights, missed dinners, and personal sacrifices, all dismissed with a single sentence. How could he accuse me of something I didn't do? At my desk, staring at the empty email slot where my bonus should have been, I noticed things I had ignored before. Odd requests, hidden messages, small exchanges between him and the finance manager, things that didn't add up. I felt a sinking certainty. Something wasn't right. I decided to investigate quietly. Every extra hour I spent, every document I reviewed, every conversation I overheard, it all became part of a puzzle I hadn't realized existed. The truth was worse than I imagined. My boss was hiding something. It began with small inconsistencies in the accounts, transactions that didn't make sense, investments that had nothing to do with the company. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Gambling. Large sums disappearing into unknown accounts. My stomach twisted. I realized he hadn't just cut my bonus to punish me. He was covering his tracks. And somehow, I had become the scapegoat, anger mixed with fear. I couldn't go to HR, not yet. He had influence, allies, a wall built around his secrets. But that same wall that trapped me could become his downfall, if I was careful. I spent nights at the office reviewing emails, financial reports, and hidden transactions. Every detail mattered. Every slip he made became a clue. I was building a case, but it was risky. One mistake, and I could lose everything. Or worse, be implicated in his fraud. But I realized something crucial. This wasn't about revenge alone. It was about justice, about exposing him, showing the world that I wasn't the weak, incompetent employee he tried to make me. I remember sitting alone at my apartment, staring at my laptop, hands shaking, whispering to myself, "He thinks he's untouchable, but I've seen the truth, and the truth will destroy him." That night I made a promise. I wouldn't stoop to his level. I wouldn't lie, cheat, or manipulate anyone. I would let his own mistakes speak for themselves. But I would be patient, calculated, strategic. Little did he know, the person he humiliated, the one he thought was easily broken, was already planning the moment that would turn the tables. I didn't know when it would happen, but one thing was certain: his world, built on lies and greed, was about to unravel. The next week at work, everything felt heavier. Every smile my boss gave seemed false, every casual word carried an edge. It wasn't just humiliation anymore. It was a warning. Colleagues whispered behind their hands, some sympathetic, others wary. I knew that speaking up too soon could backfire, so I stayed quiet, pretending nothing was wrong. But inside I was burning. One afternoon, I noticed a series of odd transfers while reviewing the financial files he had carelessly left open. At first, they were small, almost unnoticeable, then increasingly large. My heart pounded. It wasn't just mismanagement. It was deliberate. Company funds were being siphoned off, and somehow I had become the scapegoat. I wanted to confront him, but I couldn't afford to make a mistake. I tried subtly in the hallway after a meeting. "Sir, I don't understand why my work is being blamed. Can we go over the numbers?" He gave me that chilling, confident smile. "Mistakes happen," he said slowly, almost savoring it. "And someone has to take responsibility. Today that's you. Convenient, isn't it?" Convenient. The word echoed inside me. I wanted to scream, to grab him, to make him admit the truth, but I stayed calm. Anger had to be turned into strategy. Patience, not impulsiveness, would win this. That night, I stayed late at the office. While everyone else left, I traced transactions, cross-checked emails, and compiled evidence quietly. The picture that emerged made my blood run cold. It wasn't a slip-up. He was systematically gambling with company funds, covering losses and using me as the fall guy. Then, the breakthrough, an email confirmation from a betting platform. The language was cryptic, but it was unmistakable. He had lost large sums of money and used company resources to cover it. My pulse raced. Finally, the proof I needed. But danger was real. One wrong click, one careless move, and he would know I was on to him. I could be fired, or worse, implicated. Still in that tension, my resolve hardened. The next morning, during a department meeting, he humiliated me in front of everyone. "We reviewed the numbers again," he said, his voice loud and smooth. "And the mistakes point back to you. I expect better, or next time there won't even be a warning." I felt the sting of betrayal, but also a surge of determination. I would not let him define my reputation. Later, I overheard him bragging on the phone, boasting about how he handled me. That arrogance. It was his weakness. I had copies of emails, transactions, and betting confirmations. I had evidence he couldn't deny. And for the first time, I felt power. Knowledge was my weapon. I began to plan carefully. This wasn't about anger. It was about justice. Every day I mapped out my strategy. I needed witnesses, concrete proof, and precise timing. One misstep and he could spin the story, gaslight everyone, and I'd be the scapegoat again. But if I executed this correctly, he would never see it coming. At home, late at night, I whispered to myself, almost like a mantra, "You think you can ruin me, but I will be the one standing, and everyone will see the truth." Betrayal, I realized, has a way of sharpening the soul. It exposes weakness, but it also ignites strength. Every insult, every lie, every unjust blame was now fuel for my plan. I wasn't broken. I was preparing. And in that preparation, I finally understood the cruel clarity of revenge. It is not about hurting the other person. It is about showing them that underestimating you was their biggest mistake. I knew that just knowing the truth wouldn't be enough. Proof without leverage was useless. I needed a plan, precise, calculated, and unstoppable. This wasn't about shouting accusations or dramatics. It was about exposing him in a way that left no room for lies. First, I secured allies quietly. Not friends, but colleagues with integrity, people who could witness irregularities without feeling pressured. I began planting subtle observations, letting them notice anomalies themselves. Every question, every pointed comment nudged them closer to the truth. Some noticed small discrepancies. Others recalled emails they'd long forgotten. Slowly, a network of awareness was forming, all under the radar. Second, I protected myself. I duplicated every critical file, encrypted the copies, and stored them securely on personal drives. I left evidence in multiple locations, with timestamps and backup plans. One wrong click, one accidental exposure could ruin everything. But each precaution also gave me confidence. The knowledge I had collected wasn't just proof. It was insurance. Third, I used his own arrogance against him. He thrived on control, believed no one could touch him, and I exploited that. I volunteered for tasks that kept me close to sensitive financial data, and more importantly, close to him. I smiled when needed, executed his orders flawlessly, and let him feel he was still in charge. In his confidence, he revealed his vulnerabilities. I spent nights piecing together the financial trail. Transfers, offshore accounts, shell companies, they all painted the same picture. He had gambled, lost, and covered it up using company funds. Emails to bookies, confirmations of bets, and irregular internal transactions created a clear timeline. The puzzle that had kept me awake for weeks was finally complete. Timing became everything. I couldn't act too early, or my claims would be dismissed as a vendetta. I needed a moment when auditors and external scrutiny would be unavoidable. Fortune provided one. The quarterly audit was scheduled in 3 weeks. If the auditors had access to the information at the right time, there would be no escape for him. I prepared a dossier, organized, undeniable, and airtight. Screenshots, emails, transaction logs, witness statements, all meticulously compiled. I rehearsed how I would explain it aloud if needed, ensuring clarity and precision. Every fact was double-checked, every link verified. I wasn't leaving room for mistakes. Then came the key human element, a senior accountant I could trust. Not a friend, but a professional who valued integrity above politics. I discreetly shared a redacted version of the dossier with him, enough to make him realize the severity without implicating myself. His reaction confirmed what I already knew. Someone with authority and credibility could bring the auditors attention to the irregularities without it seeming personal. Days crawled by. He remained outwardly confident, but I could sense cracks forming. Subtle glances, tense phone calls, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He could feel the pressure, but didn't he know where it was coming from? And that, I realized, was the turning point. His fear, though invisible, confirmed that the web I was weaving was working. The night before the audit, I did the final step. Sent an anonymous tip to the auditors, a redacted version of the dossier, along with a concise note requesting verification of suspicious transactions. At the same time, I ensured the senior accountant had the complete version ready, with instructions to present it if any questions arose. I sat alone in my apartment, heart racing, yet strangely calm. Every precaution was taken. Every piece of evidence was in the right hands. The trap had been set. When morning came, I walked into the office like any other day, outwardly composed, yet inwardly poised for the moment everything would shift. I watched him, the man who humiliated me, the one who stole my bonus and blamed me for his crimes. He smiled, unaware that the floor beneath him was crumbling. The anticipation was unbearable, but I didn't flinch. I didn't need to. The truth was my weapon, and it was about to speak louder than any lie he had told. That day I realized something profound. Betrayal could either destroy you or refine you. It could shatter confidence or forge clarity. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt empowered, not angry, not vengeful, just unstoppable. The audit began like any other, quiet, formal, routine. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. I sat at my desk, pretending to work, while auditors moved through files, asking questions that, to others, seemed ordinary. But I knew better. Each question was a chisel, slowly uncovering the cracks in my boss's carefully constructed facade. By mid-morning, the first wave of scrutiny hit him. An auditor requested clarification on several large, unusual transfers. He smiled, confident, brushing it off as a clerical oversight. But his calm faltered when follow-up questions demanded supporting documents he couldn't produce. He started to sweat, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. I watched silently, heart pounding, but keeping my expression neutral. Months of preparation had led to this moment. He had humiliated me, lied about me, tried to ruin my career, and now the very evidence he thought I couldn't access was unraveling him. The senior accountant stepped in at just the right moment, presenting the compiled evidence. Screenshots of betting platform confirmations, emails to offshore accounts, internal transactions, all neatly laid out, clearly showing how company funds had been diverted for personal gambling. The auditor's eyes widened as they flipped through the dossier, confirming what I already knew. The truth was undeniable. He tried to speak, to defend himself, but the room had shifted. Colleagues who once feared him now watched with quiet astonishment. Every excuse he offered sounded hollow, every claim contradicted by the evidence. He stammered, desperate, but the auditors remained calm and professional, focused on facts rather than fear. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and relief. Not glee, not vengeance. It was the quiet triumph of justice. The man who thought he could destroy me had underestimated me. and now the law of truth was moving faster than his lies. By the afternoon, the auditors had completed their preliminary report. Recommendations for further investigation were already in motion. HR was notified. Internal controls would be tightened, and he would be suspended pending a full inquiry. His empire of deception, built on intimidation and greed, was collapsing. As he was escorted from the office, his face betrayed disbelief, anger, and fear all at once. For the first time, he was powerless. I had seen that same expression in nightmares. But now I realized it was fleeting. Justice doesn't need theatrics. It just needs truth. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply returned to my desk, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. The months of anxiety, humiliation, and sleepless nights were behind me. I had endured, prepared, and emerged intact. More than that, I had done it without stooping to his level. The satisfaction was quiet, but it ran deep. Later that evening, a few colleagues approached me, offering congratulations, hesitant at first, then more openly. Their words were sincere. They spoke of respect, courage, and integrity. I nodded, grateful but silent. Some wounds can't be voiced. They are felt in the calm after the storm. I left the office that day with a sense of clarity I hadn't known for months. I'd been tested, betrayed, and challenged. And through it all, I had discovered something essential about myself: resilience. Strength isn't about retaliation. It's about standing firm, keeping integrity, and letting truth do the work that anger never could. At home, I stared at the city lights, thinking back to the moment it all began. The accusation, the humiliation, the sleepless nights. I whispered to myself, "You underestimated me. You thought I was weak. But I was stronger than you ever imagined." Life didn't return to exactly how it had been. Some trust was broken, some relationships strained, but I had reclaimed my dignity. The lesson was clear: betrayal can break you, but it can also forge you into someone unshakable, someone who knows their worth and will never let deceit define them. Sometimes justice isn't about revenge. It's about preparation, patience, and letting truth reveal itself in its own time. And on that day, as I watched the man who tried to destroy me face the consequences of his actions, I understood something profound. Power taken by deceit always crumbles. Integrity, patience, and courage endure. I had lost nothing but gained everything that truly mattered: clarity, strength, and the quiet knowledge that no one, not even the most cunning betrayal, could ever break me again. Weeks passed after the audit, and the office felt lighter, almost surreal. The tension that had once choked the air was gone. My boss had been suspended pending a full investigation, and the external auditors were working closely with HR to untangle the financial mess he left behind. Colleagues approached me differently now. There was no pity, no whispered doubts about my competence. Instead, I felt respect. People who had once avoided me out of fear now offered quiet smiles, nods of acknowledgement. It wasn't about being the hero. It was about integrity finally being recognized. I sat at my desk one morning, looking at the same spreadsheet that had started this nightmare months ago. The numbers were no longer weapons. They were proof of resilience. Proof that careful planning, patience, and courage could turn betrayal into triumph without stooping to cruelty. I thought back to the man who had humiliated me, who had cut my bonus and blamed me for his mistakes. I didn't feel revenge anymore. Watching the law and truth catch up with him had been far more satisfying than anything I could have done personally. It was clean, precise, and undeniable. In the days that followed, the company implemented stricter oversight, ensuring no one could exploit the system the way he had. And as the dust settled, I found myself reflecting on the deeper lesson of it all. Betrayal can be devastating, but it also reveals character. It shows who you truly are under pressure. And it teaches patience, strategy, and resilience in ways that comfort never could. I returned to my life, but with a renewed sense of purpose. I no longer feared dishonesty or manipulation. I knew I could endure, adapt, and overcome. The experience left me stronger, sharper, and more aware of my own worth. Late one night, sitting alone at my apartment, I thought about everything I had endured: the humiliation, the sleepless nights, the fear, the quiet plotting. And I realized something profound. The power of truth is greater than the power of deception. Lies can manipulate, intimidate, and harm, but they are fragile. The truth, carefully gathered and patiently applied, is unstoppable. I whispered to myself quietly but firmly, "You underestimated me. You thought I would break. But I didn't. I am stronger than your lies, stronger than your betrayal, stronger than anyone who doubts me." Life moved on. The company stabilized. Some people left, others stayed, but the lesson remained. Integrity is the most valuable asset you can hold. Betrayal may wound, but it can also awaken a strength you never knew you had. And as for me, I learned something I will never forget. Revenge isn't about cruelty or vindictiveness. True power lies in preparation, patience, and letting the consequences of deception unfold naturally. The man who tried to destroy me had underestimated the one thing he couldn't control: me. I didn't just survive his betrayal, I thrived because of it. I had taken control of my story, my reputation, and my life, and in the quiet aftermath, I understood that the greatest victories are the ones that leave you unbroken, dignified, and undeniably stronger than before. Sometimes the hardest battles teach the most important lessons. And as I moved forward, I carried with me the certainty that no one, not even the most cunning betrayal, could ever define me again. I had lost nothing but gained everything that truly mattered: clarity, strength, and the unshakable confidence that I could face whatever life threw at me next.